Her blind date ended in humiliation, until the millionaire who employed her finally spoke. Maya Alvarez stood in front of the bathroom mirror in her tiny apartment, staring at her reflection as if it belonged to someone else. The fluorescent light above flickered slightly, casting soft shadows across her face. She smoothed the fabric of the navy blue dress she had borrowed from her coworker, Anna, for the third time in 2 minutes. It wasn't new. It wasn't designer. But it was clean, elegant, and made her feel, just for tonight, like she belonged somewhere better. At 27, Maya had learned not to expect much from life. Expectations only made disappointment sharper. Still, tonight had felt different. Important. Dangerous even. This was her first real date. Not a rushed coffee. Not a polite walk. A real dinner at a real restaurant. She applied a thin layer of lipstick, hands trembling, then pressed her lips together and forced a small smile. The woman in the mirror looked hopeful. Too hopeful. Maya exhaled slowly. For the last 5 years she had worked as a live-in domestic employee at the Hawthorne estate, one of the largest private properties in the city. The owner, Daniel Hawthorne, was a name everyone recognized. A self-made millionaire. Tech investor. Philanthropist. Media favorite. To the world he was powerful. To Maya he was simply her employer. Their interactions were minimal. Professional. Polite. He nodded when he passed her in the hallway. Thanked her for meals. Occasionally asked if everything at the house was running smoothly. That was it. Invisible was safer, Maya had learned. Invisible meant no trouble. Tonight, however, she wasn't invisible. Tonight she was just a woman going on a date. She checked her phone. No new messages. The restaurant reservation was for 7:30 p.m. The location alone made her stomach tighten. She had Googled it 3 times to make sure she wasn't imagining the prices. Her wallet held exactly $5. Enough for gas. Not enough for dignity if things went wrong. Maya, you deserve one good night, Anna had said earlier that day. Just go. So she went. The restaurant glowed like a jewel against the night sky. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Soft golden lighting. Valet parking. Maya hesitated in her car, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. People like her didn't come here. But she straightened her shoulders anyway and stepped out. The moment she walked inside she felt it, the shift. Eyes flicking toward her. Quick judgments forming. Measuring glances that lingered just a second too long. A host greeted her with a professional smile that cooled the moment she said she was waiting for someone. Right this way, he said, leading her to a small table near the window. The table was set with polished silverware, folded linen, and a single candle that flickered softly between 2 empty seats. Maya sat down carefully. She folded her hands in her lap and waited. At 7:30 she checked her phone. Nothing. At 7:40 the waiter came by and asked if she wanted water. Yes please, she said quietly. At 7:50 the whispers started. She felt them before she heard them. The subtle glances, the side smiles, the curiosity edged with judgment. A woman alone at a table like this was an oddity. A woman dressed modestly, checking her phone, clearly nervous. It told a story people thought they understood. At 8 o'clock, the hope inside her chest began to crack. She had met Lucas online 2 weeks ago. His messages had been kind. Encouraging. He said he admired her honesty, her work ethic. He said he liked real women. Tonight was supposed to prove that those words meant something. At 8:12 her phone buzzed. Her heart jumped. Then dropped. The message was short. I don't think this is going to work. You're not really what I imagined. Take care. That was it. No apology. No explanation. Maya stared at the screen as heat rushed to her face and her vision blurred. Her throat tightened painfully as the realization sank in. He had seen her. Decided. Dismissed her. Without even showing up. The humiliation settled deep in her chest, heavy and suffocating. She felt small. Exposed. Foolish for believing she could step into a world that was never meant for her. She reached for her purse, desperate to escape before the tears fell. That was when she felt it. A presence. Across the room in a quiet corner booth, Daniel Hawthorne lowered his tablet slowly. His dinner meeting had been canceled an hour earlier. Normally he would have left immediately. Tonight, for reasons he couldn't explain, he stayed. And then he noticed her. At first he didn't recognize her. The woman by the window looked composed, elegant, and heartbreakingly alone. But when she lifted her head slightly, wiping at her eyes, recognition struck him like a physical blow. Maya. The woman who kept his home running. Who prepared his meals. Who quietly existed on the edges of his life. He watched as she read her phone. watched as her shoulders slumped, watched as she gathered her things, clearly fighting tears. Something twisted sharply in his chest. He hadn't planned to move. He hadn't planned to interfere. But before logic could catch up with instinct, Daniel was on his feet, walking across the restaurant toward her table. Maya looked up, startled, as a shadow fell across the candlelight. Her eyes widened. "Mr. Hawthorne?" Her voice trembled with embarrassment. Daniel stopped beside her chair. "Maya," he said gently, "may I sit down?" She hesitated. Panic flared. Of all people to see her like this, why him? "I was just leaving," she said quickly. "Please," he replied quietly but firmly. "Not like this." There was something different in his tone. Something human. She nodded slowly and sat back down. Daniel took the seat across from her. For a moment, neither spoke. "I saw what happened," he said softly. "You didn't deserve that." Her eyes filled again. "I shouldn't have come," she whispered. "I should have known better." "Known what?" he asked. "That people like me don't belong here." The words hit him harder than he expected. "That's not true," he said immediately. "And anyone who made you feel that way is wrong." She looked at him, searching his face for pity or obligation. She found neither. Instead, she found something else. Respect. "Why are you here?" she asked. Daniel took a breath. "Because I couldn't ignore this. Because I've worked alongside you for years without truly seeing you. And tonight I finally did." The air between them shifted. "Have you eaten?" he asked. She shook her head. "Then stay," he said. "Please. Have dinner with me." Maya hesitated, thinking of the $5 in her purse. Thinking of how impossible this felt. Then she nodded. "Okay." Neither of them realized it yet, but this moment, born from humiliation and kindness, was about to change everything. When the world judged her, he began to question everything. The waiter returned with menus, but Maya barely glanced at hers. The prices felt unreal, like numbers from a different universe. She held the menu with careful hands, as though it might disappear if she touched it too firmly. Daniel noticed the way her shoulders tightened, the subtle hesitation before every movement. "Order whatever you'd like," he said calmly. "Please." She swallowed. "I don't want to." "This isn't charity," he interrupted gently. "This is dinner." Something about the way he said it, firm, respectful, without pity, made her nod. She chose the simplest item on the menu, something she could pronounce without fear. Daniel ordered without hesitation. As the waiter left, silence settled between them again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt careful. Like both of them were standing on unfamiliar ground. "I'm sorry you had to see that," Maya said finally, eyes fixed on the table. "This isn't how I usually am." Daniel leaned back slightly. "You don't have to apologize. Not to me. Not to anyone." She laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. Easy to say. He didn't argue. Instead, he asked, "Why did you come tonight?" The question caught her off guard. She hesitated, then answered honestly. "Because for once, I wanted to believe I could be chosen." Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. "Chosen for what?" he asked. "For me," she replied. "Not for what I do. Not for what I can offer. Just me." The food arrived, but neither of them touched it right away. Maya told him about her childhood, how her mother cleaned offices at night, how she learned early that survival required silence and endurance. She spoke about working 2 jobs before landing the position at the Hawthorne estate. About sending money home every month. About dreams she kept folded neatly away because dreams didn't pay rent. "I like baking," she admitted almost shyly. "On my days off, I bring pastries to the community center near my apartment. It makes people smile." Daniel listened, struck by the simplicity and sincerity of it. He realized something uncomfortable. He had never once asked her about her life. Not in 5 years. "And you?" she asked, surprising him. "What do you want?" The question lingered. "I don't know anymore," he said truthfully. "I inherited responsibility before I understood choice." She studied him, seeing not a millionaire, but a man quietly trapped by expectations. "People think having money means freedom," she said. "But I don't think that's always true." He smiled faintly. "You're right." They finished dinner slowly, talking like two people discovering one another for the first time. When they stood to leave, Daniel noticed the way nearby diners stared, confused, judgmental, whispering. A woman like her. A man like him. Maya noticed too. Instinctively she stepped back. Daniel didn't. Instead, he walked beside her, matching her pace, unbothered by the eyes following them. Outside, the city air felt cooler, heavier with reality. "Thank you," she said softly. "You didn't have to do this." "I wanted to," he replied. "And I'd like to see you again. If that's okay." She hesitated. "This complicates things," she said carefully. "You're my employer." "I know," he acknowledged. "We'll take it slowly. Respectfully. You decide the pace." After a moment she nodded. "Okay." They parted with an awkward but warm goodbye. That night neither of them slept much. The next morning Maya arrived at the estate early as always. But everything felt different. The walls seemed louder. The silence heavier. Daniel noticed too. At breakfast he found himself watching her, noticing details he'd overlooked for years. The quiet efficiency. The care she put into everything. The way she moved through rooms like she was trying not to disturb the air itself. Later that day his sister Clara stopped by unannounced. Clara Hawthorne was sharp, polished, and unapologetically judgmental. She managed the family foundation and believed deeply in appearances. "Maya," Clara said, glancing briefly at her. "Could you bring coffee?" Maya nodded and left the room. Clara leaned toward Daniel. "She's efficient," she said. "But you should remind staff to maintain boundaries." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" "I saw you at the Golden Rose last night," Clara said smoothly. "With her." Silence fell. "That's not appropriate," Clara continued. "People will talk." Daniel felt something shift inside him. Anger, clarity, resolve. "Let them," he said. Clara blinked. "Excuse me?" "She's a person," Daniel said firmly. "Not a rumor." Clara's lips tightened. "You're being reckless." "No," he replied. "I've been blind." That afternoon Maya overheard whispers among the staff. Glances. Assumptions. Judgment. By evening doubt crept back in. She found a message slipped under her door that night, unsigned. "People like you should know their place." Her hands trembled as she read it. Across the estate, Daniel stared out his office window, unaware that the world was already trying to push Maya back into the shadows. And soon he would have to decide whether he was strong enough to stand with her, or whether comfort would win over courage. The day they tried to put her back in her place. Maya did not sleep that night. The unsigned note sat on her bedside table like a weight she couldn't move. The words replayed in her mind over and over, sharper with each repetition. She had spent years learning how to endure quiet disrespect, but this felt different. This felt like a warning. The next morning she folded the note and slipped it into her bag, unsure why she couldn't bring herself to throw it away. Maybe because part of her had always known that kindness toward someone like her came with consequences. At the estate the atmosphere had changed. Conversations stopped when she entered rooms. Smiles felt forced. Instructions were delivered with a new edge, shorter, colder. The house manager, Mrs. Delaney, who had once praised Maya's work ethic, now watched her with thinly veiled suspicion. Daniel noticed. He noticed the way Maya avoided eye contact. The way she moved faster than usual as if trying to make herself smaller again. The warmth from the night before had retreated behind a wall of professionalism so rigid it hurt to look at. At lunch he finally spoke. "Maya," he said quietly in the kitchen, careful to keep his tone neutral. "Are you all right?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sir." The distance in her voice struck him harder than any accusation. Later that day Clara returned. This time she brought company. A few board members from the family foundation gathered in the living room, sipping coffee and discussing an upcoming charity gala, one of the most high-profile events of the year. Media, donors, investors. Everything Daniel usually tolerated but never enjoyed. "Maya," Clara called. "Can you bring refreshments?" Maya entered with a tray, head down. As she set the cups on the table, one of the women glanced at her and smiled thinly. "Is she new?" "No," Clara replied. "She's part of the household staff." The emphasis was deliberate. Maya felt her face burn. Another board member chuckled softly. "Ah, well, she certainly looks presentable." Daniel's jaw tightened. The woman continued, unaware or uncaring. "Still, it's important to maintain appearances. We don't want confusion." The room fell quiet. Daniel stood. "That's enough," he said. Every head turned. "She is not an object," he continued. "And she does not exist for your commentary." Clara stared at him in disbelief. "Daniel?" "No," he interrupted. "You're not doing this." Maya froze, heart pounding. "She works here," Clara said. "We have standards." "So do I," Daniel replied. "And one of them is respect." The room grew uncomfortable. The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Clara forced a laugh. "You're overreacting." "No," Daniel said evenly. "You're underestimating." That evening, Maya found herself summoned to Mrs. Delaney's office. The door closed behind her with a soft but final click. "I've had concerns raised," Mrs. Delaney said, folding her hands. "About boundaries." Maya's stomach dropped. "It's important that you remember your role here," Mrs. Delaney continued. "Professional distance must be maintained." "I've done nothing wrong," Maya said quietly. "That may be," Mrs. Delaney replied. "But perception matters." Maya left the office feeling smaller than she had in years. Outside, she finally let the tears fall. Daniel found her there. "Maya," he said urgently. "What happened?" She shook her head. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I don't belong here, not like this." He listened as she told him everything. The note, the whispers, the meeting. Anger burned through him, not loud, not explosive, but sharp and focused. "This ends now," he said. "What?" she asked. "This hiding," he said. "This pretending you're less to make others comfortable." She looked at him, fear and hope colliding. "I don't want special treatment," she said. "I just want to be treated like a person." "You will be," he replied. "Starting tomorrow." The gala was the following night. And for the first time, Daniel decided he would not attend alone. The night they tried to shame her, and exposed themselves instead. The Hawthorne Charity Gala was nothing short of spectacle. Crystal chandeliers lit the grand ballroom in warm gold, reflecting off marble floors polished to perfection. Cameras flashed near the entrance as influential figures arrived in tailored suits and designer gowns, each eager to be seen and remembered. It was the kind of event where power was displayed subtly, through posture, language, and who stood beside whom. Maya stood in her room at the estate, staring at herself in the mirror, heart racing. The dress Daniel had arranged for her was elegant, simple, and nothing like anything she had ever worn. It wasn't flashy. It didn't try to impress. It fit her perfectly, like it had been chosen with care, not money. "You don't have to do this," she whispered to her reflection. But she knew she did. Downstairs, Clara watched with a tight smile as Daniel descended the staircase, alone at first. Relief flickered across her face. Then Maya appeared. The room stilled. She walked beside Daniel, not behind him. Whispers rippled through the guests like a shockwave. "Who is she? Isn't that the housekeeper? This is inappropriate." Maya felt every word, every stare, but she kept walking. Daniel did not let go of her hand. They entered the ballroom together. Almost immediately, Clara intercepted them, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Daniel," she said sweetly. "A word." "It can wait," he replied calmly. "This is a mistake," Clara hissed. "You're embarrassing yourself." And her. Daniel met her gaze steadily. "No. You are." As they moved further into the room, a donor approached, a man known for his influence in philanthropic circles. "Well," he said with a chuckle, eyes flicking to Maya. "This is unexpected." Maya braced herself. Daniel didn't. "Let me introduce you properly," he said. "This is Maya Alvarez." He paused. "The woman who redesigned our community outreach logistics last year, saving the foundation over $2 million. The same woman whose proposal I recently approved to lead our new neighborhood development initiative." Silence crashed down around them. The donor's smile faltered. What? Maya's breath caught. Daniel turned to her. "You never told me you had a degree in urban planning." Her voice shook slightly. "I didn't think it mattered." "It does," he said. "And it will." Around them, expressions shifted. Confusion gave way to shock. Shock to recalculation. Clara stood frozen. Throughout the evening, the same pattern repeated. People who had dismissed Maya hours earlier now sought her out, suddenly curious, suddenly respectful. But she noticed something else too, how hollow their interest felt. Later, on stage, Daniel took the microphone. "I want to address something," he said, voice steady, commanding attention. "Tonight has reminded me how easily we judge worth by appearance, title, or proximity to power." The room was silent. "Maya Alvarez works for me," he continued. "But more importantly, she works for herself. She is intelligent, capable, and deserving of respect, just like anyone else here." He looked directly at Clara. "If that makes anyone uncomfortable," he said calmly, "I suggest you examine why." Applause broke out, slow at first, then thunderous. Maya stood beside him, tears in her eyes. For the first time in her life, she wasn't shrinking. She was standing tall. when respect finally spoke louder than status. The days following the gala felt unreal to Maya. What had once been whispers behind closed doors turned into open acknowledgement. Emails arrived addressed directly to her. Meetings she was never invited to suddenly required her presence. The same people who once looked past her now waited for her opinions, nodding thoughtfully as she spoke. But the most meaningful change didn't come from recognition. It came from peace. Daniel kept his word. Boundaries were respected. Choices were hers. When he offered her a leadership role within the foundation, it wasn't framed as generosity, it was framed as earned trust. "You don't owe me anything," he told her one afternoon as they walked through the garden. "You always had this. I just failed to notice." She smiled, not bitterly, not triumphantly, but gratefully. Clara, on the other hand, did not adapt easily. Weeks later, during a board review, her conduct at the gala was formally addressed. Her dismissal of staff, her public remarks, and her resistance to change were cited as incompatible with the foundation's values. She wasn't removed, but her authority was limited, and her influence diminished. It was quiet karma. The kind that didn't need applause. Maya eventually moved out of the staff quarters, not because she was pushed out, but because she was ready to step forward. She rented a small place near the community center she loved so much. On weekends she still baked. Only now she also taught free workshops, helping others turn skills into opportunities. One evening, after closing the center, she and Daniel sat together on a bench outside. "You changed my life," she said softly. He shook his head. "No, you changed mine. You reminded me that success without humanity is failure in disguise." They didn't rush love. They didn't perform it. They let it grow slowly, rooted in mutual respect, not power. And somewhere in the city, people who had once laughed, judged, and dismissed her now told a different story. Not about a maid. Not about a millionaire. But about a woman who stood her ground, and a man who finally listened.